Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. What if I told you that for most people listening right now, you are not 100% Homo sapiens? That etched into the very fabric of your DNA is the ghost of another kind of human, a story of a time when we were not alone on this planet. This isn't science fiction. This is the story of our closest extinct relatives, the Neanderthals, and how, in a very real sense, they never truly vanished. They live on inside us. For decades, we pictured Neanderthals as brutish, hunched-over cavemen, a failed evolutionary side branch. But science has rewritten that story completely. Let's travel back in time to a world of two humans. The Neanderthals, or Homo neanderthalensis, evolved and thrived in Europe and Asia for hundreds of thousands of years, long before we, Homo sapiens, left Africa. They were supremely adapted to the harsh Ice Age climates. Their shorter, stockier bodies conserved heat. Their large noses may have warmed and humidified the frigid, dry air. And their brains were, on average, even larger than ours today. Far from being primitive, they were masters of their environment. They were skilled hunters of mammoths and rhinos, but we know from their fossilized dental plaque that they also ate a variety of plants, grains, and nuts, and even had knowledge of medicinal plants. They controlled fire, crafted a sophisticated toolkit known as the Mousterian industry, and lived in small family groups caring for their sick and elderly. We have evidence they intentionally buried their dead, sometimes with offerings like flowers, and they created personal adornments from shells and animal teeth. They were, in every sense, a successful and intelligent human species. Meanwhile, our own species, Homo sapiens, was evolving in Africa. Around 300,000 years ago, anatomically modern humans appeared. We were more slender, with a higher, rounded skull and a prominent chin. We also developed our own complex culture, creating advanced projectile weapons, which gave us a hunting advantage, and engaging in long-distance trade, suggesting larger social networks. For hundreds of thousands of years, our two species remained largely separate. But that changed when modern humans began to expand beyond Africa. This wasn't one single event, but a series of waves. And as our ancestors moved into Eurasia between 50,000 and 70,000 years ago, they entered a world that was already home to the Neanderthals. The first encounters likely happened in the Middle East, a natural crossroads between continents. For a long time, we thought this was the only window of interaction, but recent discoveries have pushed the timeline back dramatically. In Israel's School Cave, a 140,000-year-old child's fossil shows a clear mix of Homo sapiens and Neanderthal, features the earliest known physical evidence of interbreeding. This wasn't a brief encounter. In Europe, the two groups coexisted for several thousand years. In a cave near Rennes, Germany, genetic analysis of bone fragments proved that modern humans were in northern Europe 45,000 years ago, at the same time as Neanderthals. A 40,000-year-old human jawbone from Romania contained so much Neanderthal DNA that it must have had a Neanderthal ancestor just 4 to 6 generations back. These meetings happened on a constantly changing Pleistocene stage, a world of dramatic climate shifts. During ice ages, both populations would have been pushed into southern refuges in places like Spain and Italy, bringing them into closer contact and competition for resources. During warmer periods, they would expand again. So we know they met, we know they coexisted, but did they interbreed? For years, suggestive fossils with a mosaic of features, like the 500-year-old Lapido child from Portugal with its Neanderthal-like limbs and modern human chin, were debated. They were intriguing, but not definitive proof. The real answer would have to come from a revolutionary new field, the study of ancient DNA. Extracting DNA from long-dead organisms is incredibly difficult. The genetic material degrades into tiny fragments and is easily contaminated by modern DNA. Overcoming these challenges was the life's work of scientists like the Swedish geneticist Svante Pääbo. His team developed ultra-clean labs and sophisticated computational methods to piece together ancient genomes. In 1997, they sequenced a small piece of Neanderthal mitochondrial DNA, which showed it was distinct from ours. But the real bombshell dropped in 2010. Pääbo's team published the first draft of the complete Neanderthal nuclear genome, sequenced from bones found in a Croatian cave. When they compared it to modern human genomes, the result was stunning and irrefutable. It showed that all people of non-African descent today carry between 1 and 4% Neanderthal DNA. This was the smoking gun. It proved that our ancestors didn't just replace the Neanderthals, they had children with them. The interbreeding likely happened between 47,000 and 65,000 years ago, soon after modern humans migrated out of Africa. The fact that this happened at all implies a level of social and biological compatibility. The two groups recognized each other as potential partners. There's also evidence of cultural exchange. In France and Spain, a tool industry called the Chattel Perronien shows a blend of Neanderthal techniques with the more advanced blade technology of modern humans, suggesting a period of contact and learning. But the interactions weren't always peaceful. The arrival of modern humans coincided with the decline and eventual extinction of the Neanderthals, so competition for food and shelter was almost certainly part of the story. So what is the legacy of these ancient encounters? It's written in your genes. That small percentage of Neanderthal DNA is not just a random curiosity. It has a real and ongoing impact on our biology. In many cases, these genes were likely preserved because they offered a survival advantage. One of the most significant contributions is to our immune system. As modern humans left Africa, they encountered new diseases. Neanderthals had been living in Eurasia for millennia and were well adapted to these local pathogens. By interbreeding, our ancestors got a quick-start genetic toolkit to fight off new infections. Several genes that code for toll-like receptors, a key part of our body's first line of defense, are of Neanderthal origin. Neanderthal DNA also influences our physical traits. Gene variants associated with hair color, skin tone, and the production of keratin, the protein that gives toughness to our skin and hair, may have helped our ancestors adapt to different levels of sunlight and colder climates in Eurasia. But this genetic legacy is a double-edged sword. Genes that were helpful in the Ice Age can be detrimental in our modern world. That supercharged immune system? It's been linked to an increased risk for autoimmune diseases like lupus and Crohn's disease, where the immune system mistakenly attacks the body's own tissues. Neanderthal DNA is also associated with a higher risk for type 2 diabetes, blood clotting disorders, depression, and even nicotine addiction. In a stark modern example, a major genetic risk factor for severe COVID-19 has been traced back to a segment of DNA on chromosome 3 that we inherited from Neanderthals. Just as telling as the genes that are present are the ones that are missing. There are large regions of our genome that are deserts of Neanderthal ancestry. These deserts are often found on the X chromosome and in genes related to male fertility. This strongly suggests that while interbreeding was possible, there were some incompatibilities. Male hybrids may have had reduced fertility, a common issue when different, but closely related, species interbreed. This new reality has shattered the simple, linear story of human evolution. The old out-of-Africa replacement model, where we came out and simply wiped out everyone else, is dead. The story of humanity is not a neat family tree. It's a tangled, intersecting web. And the story got even more complex with another discovery. The same year the Neanderthal genome was published, Svante Pääbo's lab sequenced DNA from a 40,000-year-old finger bone from Denisova cave in Siberia. It belonged to a previously unknown group of archaic humans, now called the Denisovans. And yes, our ancestors interbred with them too. Modern Melanesians, in particular, can carry up to 6% Denisovan DNA. So why did the Neanderthals ultimately disappear around 40,000 years ago? It was likely a combination of factors. The constant pressure of a fluctuating climate, increased competition from the growing populations of modern humans, and perhaps being slowly but surely absorbed into our much larger gene pool. Their small, fragmented populations were simply too vulnerable. The story of the Neanderthals is our story. They were not a failure. They were a successful, intelligent, and adaptable human species whose legacy lives on in the DNA of billions of people today. The lines between us and them have been blurred forever, revealing a deep and complex human story of connection, interaction, and a shared heritage that we are only just beginning to understand.